Hello again, you lovely souls, it's Floatis here, and as someone who quite enjoyed the first game, Octopath Traveler 2 lived up to my expectations and some. But this video is all about engagement. Engagement applies differently to most game genres, but it is basically a quantity to keep track of games' different systems, to get something worthwhile out of it. That could be seeing yourself improve with higher score points, getting to solve a puzzle in unexpected ways, or reaching the ending with careful planning. Obviously, at the end of the day, you as the player define what is worthwhile, but general discourse usually focuses on an area where the game excels at. Let's take that discourse to RPGs or larger-than-life games that can last hundreds of hours. When does your engagement begin or stop in a world-spanning RPG? Getting to understand gameplay systems, exploring for hidden contents, keeping track of side quests, or even just seeing characters interact can happen with or without direct player input in those games, which results in many branches the player can choose to engage to connect back to the ending. Bosses to test your understanding of the systems, reaching the end of a character's story, improving a settlement all throughout the game, and getting that numbers just high enough to feel content. RPGs as a medium is designed to keep that engagement until the ending to be satisfactory. Now, that doesn't mean the other genres don't design their games with definite beginnings and endings, but on a time-to-time basis, you'll have to give much more to the RPGs to see what the game is about. And I'm here to say that what Octopath Traveler is quite misunderstood. You might have heard that Octopath Traveler is a spiritual successor to Live Alive or Saga games, and some call it an ode to the golden age of JRPGs. That second part is only partially true, as the Saga series and Live Alive were quite experimental JRPGs that try to change that golden era formula. Albeit differing, choose your main character, explore to find story points, and small character experiences to reach their ending story took over the game-spanning journeys you might expect in your RPGs. Live Alive offered small scenarios in different eras to give you freedom. Sega Frontiers games also followed a few small stories for your chosen character. Grinding in those games also varied deeply, but most of the time, characters learn new skills by using weapons or doing fights rather than leveling up. Traditional leveling systems to build your character's stats also weren't really the focus. Your equipment and skill settings were much more relevant. And yes, grinding was still expected, but you were expected to capture the right monsters or find the right gears, and Sega Frontiers even punished you for leveling up willy-nilly. Thankfully, Square released an amazing remake for Live Alive and remastered Romancing Saga 1, 3, and Sega Frontiers. Those games actually fill a niche in JRPGs, as their biggest successors were actually handheld JRPGs, designed to be played in short bursts or built up with bit-sized experiences. Octopath Traveler actually harkens back to that philosophy. Rather than their merits or situations, all the characters are defined by their jobs. The warrior, the scholar, the hunter. Those titles give all the basics you need for the characters' stories. You are expected to choose a main character and begin with their story, but you can find the other characters by adding them to your team and completing their stories. That first push is the only thing you are expected to do in the game. After finishing your chosen character's first chapter, you are free to travel however you wish. Now, unlike some of the games we talked about, Octopath Traveler doesn't try to be obscure. All travelers' locations and recommended levels for their adventures are already on your map. This modern attempt only expects you to engage at your own pace. RPGs in general aren't created to be played from time to time. you're expected to follow the story and characters or master their multiple game systems, and remembering all of those after a long time can be hard. So how does Octopath Traveler give you the freedom to change all of that? Some of you might think of RPG inspired games when I talk of it like that, but that is nowhere near the case. Octopath is a fully realized, turn-based JRPG with its own world, lore, quest, systems, and engaging combat. Octopath's combat is built upon a system called BP, these yellow pips you see here. Your characters receive a BP each turn and can spend up to 4 of those to strengthen their skills. It also empowers your normal attacks by letting you hit that many times. Enemies have their weaknesses pointed out below them, once you discover them of course, and hitting that weakness reduces their shield. Breaking the enemy stops their actions, reduces their defenses, and gives the much needed breathing room. That's the main formula you need to know. Attacking with the right weapons or elements breaks the enemy and then you deal the damage. That may sound simple, but that is the strength of Octopath. Understanding and remembering its combat mechanics is easy, but bosses all take advantage of it with surprisingly varied mechanics. Using your BP to break the enemy causes you to deal less damage while they are broken, and holding onto your BP for a burst can give the boss the turns to eat you away. When to break the enemy matters all the time. That streamlined combat lets you pick up where you left off anytime, but that doesn't make the game easier or let you disregard the classical RPG stigmas. The biggest achievement in that regard lies in the characters and their stories. Octopath gives you a whole world to explore, Solistia, but each character's story only deals with who they are. Those stories are divided into a few chapters, and returning to one almost makes you watch the next episode of a series. They are all voiced, filled with supporting casts and challenging bosses. If expanded, some stories can even serve for a whole JRPG plot. Nevertheless, they are still contained in their stories and reach a satisfying end. Since you're expected to tackle those chapters after raising your level, each story's final boss can go all out and give you the endgame boss feeling. Let's say you didn't enjoy your chosen character's story. Just pick on another character and try theirs. None of the side quests or exploring requires a definite character, and you can complete the stories you liked in any order. As all stories somewhat differ in their genres, growing bored with a murder plot gives you the chance to move on with a fight to reclaim your throne or partake in a dancing contest. The stakes and troubles vary among the characters as expected, and I can easily say the additional care for more down-to-earth stories is absolutely there. For example, Agnia's dream of becoming a star is always foreground, and her battles take full advantage of being a JRPG with stellar music and sprite work without giving much away. One of the main criticisms against the first game was the lack of interactions among the cast, and it's somewhat improved here, but expecting a full-size JRPG party adventure misses the game's mark completely. Those stories are short and definitive because their main character differs. Each chapter tells a personal story by putting its traveler to the front. Their confrontations are sometimes scary, sometimes high stakes, and sometimes everyday occurrences. The chapters and their bosses address directly to its protagonist and create their dialogues upon that. You might not prefer that, but expecting a continuous banter in those short segments goes against everything we've talked about. Since you are always free to bring along whomever you want, or no one at all, the game gives short optional scenes to create a dialogue between your travelers. Unfortunately, these are not voiced, and sometimes trigger at unexpected moments that take away their value. On the other hand, there are cross stories in the game now, pairing up two of the characters to solve a small plot, and these are really well crafted. They make the characters feel like a party much more than some tens of hours long JRPGs, and again, these are all optional. Additionally, if you decide to go along with every chapter for every character, you'll see each of them build up a certain mystery, and you are rewarded with your true JRPG ending, combining all of your characters to deal with truly challenging bosses. That extra story is definitely satisfactory, but I'm not gonna deny that it doesn't live up to the ending chapters of the set characters in story terms. In gameplay terms though, it is one of the best final bosses I've seen in a turn-based game with quite a few unique mechanics. That freeform craft your own storytelling also applies to the gameplay. As I've said, at the end of the day, Octopath Traveler 2 is a JRPG, and you're expected to prepare your character for the battles. Leveling your characters is surely required, but I can say there are many ways to raise your numbers. The main thing you'll spend time on is the job system. Each character has a starting class, and encounters give you job points that are used to learn new skills. Learning enough of a job skills also awards you with passive skills. That main loop may seem simple at first, but there is a lot of room for tinkering. You can find the guilds for classes you've unlocked on the map, and they let another character use that job as a secondary class. That secondary class can be changed at any time, and the job points are shared between each class, so you can spend all your time on another class with a character to suddenly switch and unlock all of the abilities you need. You can't use the abilities of a job if it is not equipped, but passive skills can be used freely once unlocked. Encountering fewer enemies, earning more experience, and increasing your attack once you break an enemy are all done with these unlockable skills. You can also give quite generous boosts to your character's stats that way if you want to completely change that character's gameplay. Job guilds also give some quests to unlock additional licenses, although those can be a little more cryptic, but if you want to have a team full of warriors or dancers, no one is stopping you. If you are afraid that may result in each character becoming too similar, there is enough in each character's toolkit to differentiate them. Firstly, the second game introduced latent powers, unique to each character. Those abilities fill up during your battles and can be used multiple times, letting you use items without consuming them or gaining additional turns are all in the realm of possibilities. Secondly, each character's exploration skills also tie into their tools at hand. Kasti, the apothecary, can mix up multiple items for varying effects, or Hikari, the warrior, can use additional skills he's learned by conquering NPCs. That system also existed in the first game, but it is much more streamlined here. The best example might be Oshet, the hunter. With her, you can capture the enemies with unlimited use now, and if you run out of space, you can cook them up for items. Obviously, there are also character-specific skills on the map, waiting to be discovered by you. There are also a few secret jobs, hidden behind bosses, or simply needing the right items to learn new abilities. In the original game, these secret jobs all acted as post-game challenges, so the chance to gain access to them during the actual game is always preferable in my opinion. The first game offered pet actions for all 8 characters. Those included stealing from NPCs or challenging them to a fight. At the end of the day, all of that boiled down to 4 actions separated by good and evil counterparts. Instead of stealing, you could buy the items from that NPC, or instead of challenging to a duel, you could provoke them. Penalty for the so-called evil counterparts causes your reputation to drop if you are to fail them, but the local tavern gladly restores your reputation for a small fee. That system is preserved in the second game, and yes, it is much more of an inconvenience rather than a punishment. The pet actions in Octopath 2 not only offer nighttime activities, but overhauls the system according to that. If your level is high enough, you can guide people to help you in fights. On the other hand, if you have the money, you can hire them, or if you have the right items, you can befriend them. The additional ways to solve a problem became more prevalent in the second game. The pet actions are also shared between daily and nightly activities to make sure you always have the right one at the moment. And you can change between day and night with a single button. You can have NPCs help you in battle, you can try to steal, buy or request their high-level gears, and you can defeat them to reach inaccessible parts. Whatever you chose to do, they made sure to add a benefit to it this time around. If you question NPCs, you can reveal hidden items, or if you can defeat them in a challenge, you can learn their special skills. There are dozens of different skills in the game, which always make it worthwhile to find someone better to suit your needs. Those pet actions are especially important in side quests, as most of them act as small puzzles, but none of the side quests give you experience. They either give unique items or money to complement your build, which makes those quests a change of pace rather than a forced grind fest. Some quests lead to optional dungeons, and they are all over the place in Octopath 2. Most of these dungeons also have special bosses to reward you with gear and additional experience. But you can also enter these dungeons without any requirements, so exploring always gives something. The introduction of nighttime also offers a new way to grind. You can find rarer encounters or stronger mobs during the nighttime, but each character also receives a passive skill during the night. These can inflict debuffs on enemies, and yes, even bosses are susceptible to that effect, or increase your critical rate. It kinda becomes a risk and reward situation, but grinding at night seemed more reasonable to me. The game is really generous when it comes to items and equipment and wants you to experiment with them freely, as most equipment usually comes with a passive skill attached, or you can find dozens of different items to increase your attack, but each also does something else, for better or worse. These are all the different ways Octopath helps your characters to get stronger, and as you can see, the game never expects you to bash your head against dozens of mobs to level your characters. You can ease that process as long as you choose to engage with the game's exploration systems in a way. That's why I call the first game misunderstood. Octopath isn't that hardcore JRPG trying to channel old JRPGs. It's a modern attempt to recapture the storytelling emerged from JRPGs by giving you all these tools to explore, hidden behind short segments to keep you coming back to the game to get more out of it. Solistia is what you turn it to be, and the training is nothing more than an extra story as the game calls it. Everything, even your chosen character, is optional, and your engagement defines what the game is. And yes, creating your own broken strategies is also part of that charm. Before finishing the video, I just want to mention a few shortcomings in my experience. I won't be giving away any spoilers, so have no worries. Octopath is clearly inspired by Bravely series and the like, so having access to more jobs or skills would work to the game's benefit. Even though what is there is captivating enough, I would still like to see a few more experimental classes. The encounter rates, especially for the areas well below our level, should be adjusted, as there are cases where you pass through some roads multiple times. The ability to change your party on the fly is given with the game, and it is really great, but I think it is locked behind too many things to be worthwhile. Finally, I think the game could use a few more post-game specific dungeons or bosses. The spike in difficulty was kept on mentioning against the first game, and they seem to overcorrected themselves a little bit, as the highest optional dungeon caps at level 55. Once again, thank you so much for watching. The game is good, guys, just give Octopath Traveler 2 a chance to grow on you. In the next video, I'll probably be looking into the long-awaited Xenoblade Chronicles 3 DLC, and I'll see you guys there.